Token cost is a you problem. It's a common sentiment from AI doomers is that, oh, but AI coding is too expensive. It's going to be too expensive. Compute is too damn high. And then they'll link this awful article that is so general and gives no specifics about how AI costs more than it does to hire an employee. But we're going to disregard this is probably some janitor field or something. And then you'll see the prompts of somebody that says this and it looks like this. They'll just say, just build it. And they'll have like the longest freaking context window. Their context window size is in the freaking gigabytes of text. And they'll sit here and say, oh, it's too expensive. Oh, it's ineffective. Here's the thing. This is something that you have to control, okay? And I'm going to tell you how. How to be efficient. Step 1, stop stuffing your whole damn day into one context window. A lot of people don't realize this, but when you create a new chat window and it's fresh, right? Nothing has been sent to the LLM yet, but then you send a message and it gives you a response. You send another message, it gives you another response. Guess what? Every time you send a prompt, this entire context window is coming with it. Not only does this negatively impact the LLM's ability to do things effectively, it also costs a shit ton. Whenever you're prompting, you should view every single prompt that you've sent up till that point as additive. If this cost me $10 to send, okay, that's absurd. If it costs you $10, you're doing something else wrong. But the point is you need to be careful of this. And so step 1 really is proactively new window. Let's change this. Call it new chat. Anytime you're not working on the same thing, if I have the LLM working on, let's say, a driver, a piece of driver code, I'm not going to send another prompt telling it to go work on some UI layer. Ideally, every single feature of the driver you're working on, you're sending a new context window. And so I would expect you having 2 damn context windows for this, if not more, depending on the feature. And so that's step 1. Always be proactive about starting a new chat. I know it's hard. I get it. I really do. It's really easy to get attached to our context windows. Start a new chat. It's like we're throwing away a human being. And technically you are, right? For the most part. There's obviously some persistent storage if you have it, actually write to like a file, but you need to be okay with this. You need to be okay with letting go. It's fine. It's worth it. Trust me. Step 2, actually care about your prompt. Seems obvious, but I rarely see it actually being applied. If you're in the camp of saying, oh, token cost is a huge problem and we're going to waste a bunch of money, you should definitely care about this. I encourage you, take pride in your cheap assness. Every token you spend should be an insult to yourself. Be clear, be concise, and give it everything it may need at the forefront. All right, this is very, very important. I've seen a lot of people, they send prompts like this, where it's just the most basic thing. And I get it, it's easy to do this. And oftentimes the LLM will do it for you, but realize this has higher cost. If you were to say something like this, which is what you're gonna end up doing anyway, because if I say add a button, odds are I'm gonna have some other things I'm gonna send again to make it what I want to make it. Why not just do that first? Just be clear at the start. Whenever you're telling the LLM to do something, always ask yourself everything you can possibly think of at the forefront, right? You should envision yourself as a customer because really you are, right? You're the customer here. The LM is the one designing. If you pride yourself as an engineer being good at listening to customers, which I assume you do, then you should definitely take value in this. And so that's step 2. Be clear and actually care about your prompt. And I'll reword this so we are on the same page. And realize when you do this, what I mentioned earlier about how it's sending your entire context window and how you should be proactive about a new chat, this feeds into this. Because if I'm clear and I'm upfront in the initial prompt, I don't need to send more prompts afterward where it's going to send everything up in front again. All right, so that to me is number 2. Number 3, stop being a diva. And actually, I'm going to change this to stop using the most expensive LM all the time, right? You do not need to use freaking Fable 5 to do a basic parsing operation. You should be using smaller models for these types of tasks. Sometimes they do this for you, right? I believe there are kind of middleman layers where it'll automatically choose the right agent for the task, but you should have this control. It's good for you to get in the habit of deciding this. If all I want it to do is go through a file and explain a piece of code for me, I could use something like Haiku, or even Gemini Flash is actually pretty good at that. Right? These are very cheap models. You don't need Fable 5 to do something like this. When it comes to design, yeah, maybe I do want it to go in and use Fable 5. Actually, I'd go as far as to say I wouldn't even do that for the design stage. I would use that for the implementation phase. And for the design phase, I might use something a little bit in between, a middle tier model, right? Like an Opus Opus is pretty expensive. Maybe Sonnet for this. Kind of shooting this off the fly, but this changes, right? Every day, I think I kind of change my approach because the new models will come out, right? There's projects where I choose to use GPT models, Codex. And then there's times where I like to use things like Opus. This is something that you have to decide. But the main point here is stop using the most freaking expensive model for everything. You can get away with a cheaper model with a lot of different tasks. To me, these 3 steps significantly reduce your cost. And I want to go deeper into this argument here. The token cost is going to be a problem. It's a very common argument point that I see because it's a good one, right? This is the one crux of AI where, if it's true, could actually get us to go back to the caveman period. If we had to spend Fable 5 level of freaking cost with everything we did, trust and believe I'm throwing the AI out the door. I'm coding everything by hand. But we don't need to do that. And I want you to realize inference is cheap. Training is expensive. The amount of money OpenAI, Anthropic, these companies spend on training is insane. Spending hundreds of millions of dollars training these models. But the compute costs to run these, although it is definitely not something you and I can just afford at home, the upfront cost is really high with inference, where they have to pay for machines and allocation for GPUs and stuff. But when you compare the two, you come to realize this part right here means that a lot of the run-of-the-mill models like Sonnet, Codex, with low reasoning, these run-of-the-mill models, which aren't like flagship, the non-Fable 5 expensive models, these ones are really not at all expensive for them to run inference. The problem I have with this argument of, token cost being what's going to ruin AI development, it's assuming that we're going to use the flagship model for everything that we use. And it's also forgetting the fact that the reason a lot of these are so damn expensive is because they need to offset their training costs, right? Why do you think DeepSeek R1 came out and it was freaking pennies? They didn't need to spend massive amounts of money that OpenAI did when it came to the training part. And so they were able to get away with lowering the price and still coming out on top. You as a developer do not need the flagship model. Whether you want to admit it or not, models like Sonnet are actually good enough. Yes, I get it. Sonnet 5 or the newest one, it's not as good as Opus. It's not as good as Fable. It's not ideal, but it is good enough. You're going to be able to use that all day long. The token cost is not bad at all, and you can build a real serious product with it. If you're following these principles here, it won't cost you much at all. Another thing I want to mention is the advancement of local LLMs. Now, don't get me wrong, local LLMs are absolute dog shit. They are not good enough, and it'll be a very long time before they are. I'm not talking about local LLMs in terms of your main driver. I'm talking about as a supporting player. Companies like Microsoft and Apple are going in on local LLMs. Why? Not because they want it to replace your everything. It's a supporting player, right? Imagine a local LLM that could handle this stuff for you. It could decide when it's time to start a new chat. It could decide, it can take your input, make it more concise and more technical, and it can prevent you from doing things like this. Like, imagine a local LM that can support you in this endeavor. Also, like the example I gave earlier, where somebody's just saying, hey, add this button. This local LM can go in and say, hey, we know a way to make this more efficient. We can gauge the user's intent based on the data that our local LM has, that they're targeting this file. We can gauge based off their prior inputs how they want the button to look, right? These local LMs can add a lot of different advancements that can reduce the amount of tokens we spend. And so this adds even less cost. And the fact we don't need flagship for everything, I'm also of the belief that training is going to wind down. And by that, I mean, there's going to become less and less incentive to spend $1 bajillion on flagship, right? Because the benefits of spending more money and compute on training goes down as we get further and further. Since 2023, it really has felt like this, but we're really starting to see it become less and less of an increase with each dollar amount, right? Everyone's saying Fable 5 is the greatest thing ever, but if you really compare it to something like Opus 4.6 versus something like a pre-Opus model, which really wasn't even that long ago, right? The difference between these models is becoming less and less, and it's costing more and more. And so the day will come where freaking Sam Altman and Dario realize, hey, dude, this shit ain't worth it anymore. You go ahead, you keep going. You know what? Sam Altman might dip out of this flagship race and say, hey, keep going. You go Fable 6, we're gonna stay over here. We don't need to waste billions of dollars on training, and we get to focus in on our more effective, more cost-effective models, right? Me personally, I think Opus 4.6 and onward is good enough. I really don't feel like I need much more power. And so if we can get to a point where Opus 4.6 is the middle tier, we're done. We can stop. We can stop training these damn models. And so I don't believe this is a good argument to make. And I think it's on us as engineers to find ways to do this. You should really be taking pride on the amount of tokens you spend, and you should be looking down on engineers that don't follow these principles. We need to get to a point where token usage is like straight up climate change, or we're looking down on anyone who litters and does anything of that nature. This is how we need to view token usage. View it like a harm to humanity. And every time you're reluctant to do one of these things, you get looked down upon. This is what we need in the coding environments.